just pick one up and throw it back. Head to the bottom of an ice cold glass. I'll worry about tomorrow when it comes around. I'm just living right here, right now. You can catch me tailgating, sits packing that quitting time, or uptown in my best boots, sipping suds on a Friday night. It don't take no deep thoughts, just a little going with the flow. Words just about anywhere, and this is how it goes. I just pick one up and throw it back. Head to the bottom of an ice cold glass. Raise it high and I drink it down. I'm just living right here, right now. Ain't got a sweat about yesterday. Ain't looking back, I don't drink that way. I'll worry about tomorrow when it comes around. I'm just living right here, right now. You could say it's a good day. I got the best view in town. Everybody knows my name when I walk in and sit down. So slide along, neck over. I can make the time move slow. I can sit back and take a ride and let the road go where it goes. I just pick one up and throw it back. Head to the bottom of an ice cold glass. Raise it high and I drink it down. I'm just living right here, right now. Ain't got a sweat about yesterday. Ain't looking back, I don't drink that way. I'll worry about tomorrow when it comes around. I'm just living right here, right now. I just pick one up and throw it back. Head to the bottom of an ice cold glass. Raise it high and I drink it down. I'm just living right here, right now. Ain't got a sweat about yesterday. Ain't looking back, I don't drink that way. I'll worry about tomorrow when it comes around. I'm just living right here, right now. Today is all I'm drinking about. I'm just living right here, right now. I'm just living right here, right now. Yeah. I'm just living right here, right now.
Hello, hello. Derek, how are you?
Well, I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I got a little feedback here. Well, I'm doing pretty well. You know, let me get caught up here. So, well, hopefully that woke some folks up and got some people moving in their seats a little bit. Certainly got me moving.
Maybe so.
Are you getting that feedback like I am?
No, I don't hear any feedback, but
good. Well, I will just roll forward. So, okay, well, great. It was great to have you on today. It sounds like you had a busy morning, and
well, yeah, my dad and my dad helps me do all my book orders. So we were doing books this morning. I had to sign a bunch of books, and he packages them and then he takes them to the post office. So he's 82 years old. He'll be 83 in September. And he's still going strong. He's an old Air Force veteran, so he was pretty pumped up about
a widower?
this week. So, what'd you say?
Is he a widower? Widow?
Oh no, he's not. But he likes to keep active with me. He likes to bug me in a good way. He's like, "How many book orders we got?" I'm like, "They're building up. They don't need to build up. We need to get them out."
Right. I saw one picture. You'd signed like 90 books in one sitting or something.
Oh no, I signed in one. I think the most I've ever signed in one sitting was 1,100.
Oh,
Yeah, and that took off.
do you ever send a book out without signing it?
No,
That's awesome.
never do.
That's pretty
Yeah,
dedicated.
never do.
It's pretty dedicated. So, well, why don't you give your background really quickly? And you know what I want to get into today, and getting to know you a little bit, and some of the things you're up to. There's so many things to talk about, but I think for the group that I'm working with, it would be really advantageous to do a high-level skeleton overview of laws and order. And I'll be hosting some group calls, conversations with my folks, my inner circle, my group, and I think you could give us a great framework to better understand what in the world is happening today. What do you think?
So you want me to start with a little bit of background on me first, and then that? Okay. Well, I always tell people, I'm Derek Johnson. I'm the real me. And if I'd have known I was going to be put in this position, I'd have probably kept everything more cohesive. And so some people know me as Rattletrap 1776. I've got a page called 1776 Nation. And then I have my real name, obviously my birth name. I was born in Mobile, Alabama. Like I said, my dad's an Air Force veteran. My uncle was an Air Force veteran. My grandpa was an Army veteran. My great grandfather was an Army Air Corps, which became the Air Force, but World War I veteran. And I trace back. I'm a son of the Confederacy and a son of the Revolution. I have Native American blood as well, so my family traces back before the Mayflower, but then I'm also part of my family on my grandfather's side. It's Native American, so my family's been here since the beginning. I was that kid that grew up in the South, that grew up in a Christian family, a strong family. We still lived pretty much rural. We're all farmers. My family, they still farm cotton, mainly peanuts now, peanuts and cotton. They'll swap over every now and then to soybeans or corn, depending on what their rotation is. But my grandfather was a cotton farmer, but he was also the chief clerk for years at the courthouse. Did a lot of things with George Wallace, and a lot of Southern history there. And my other grandfather, my mother's father, he was the one I always talk about. That he taught me guitar. I wouldn't be doing anything I'm doing today with music without my grandfather. He was the one that really drove that. Taught me guitar, but he also lied about his age to get into the Army during World War II, and successfully did so at a young 17 years old, even though 17, 18 is not far off. But all his buddies were 14, 15 years old, lying about their age, and family members, and got in during the war. So I grew up under that generation of mentality. A little cool fact about him while I'm on him, he was roommates with Hank Williams Sr. In Mobile, Alabama in 1943, before the war really got going and before he lied about his age. I'm just that guy that listened to him, grew up listening to him. My dad, being an older generation father for my age bracket, my dad was 41 when he had me. So my dad being older and his friends, and then my grandfather, they taught all kinds of JFK and Eisenhower and Truman and Roosevelt. And so my grandfather was the one that taught me about puppet governments and puppet states. He loved that tactic that was used in the 40s. I would have never dreamt in my life that we'd use a tactic like that again. in this modern era, but it just goes to show you that old tactics do work. And so I'll get into that with the laws and orders. But and my dad had buddies who were Secret Service guys. That was one of them was immediate bodyguard to Jacqueline Kennedy. And then I also dated a girl in school years ago. Her dad was FBI for 33 years or so. So, I always had just an interest in that, just, outside of the country music side. Here I was chasing the country music dream over here. Then I'm over here like deep diving, old war tactics and things of that nature. But so I've always had a love for it. And I think that helps straight out the gate. But also my mother and father I was reading as a little baby. My mother shows pictures of me reading books, and I've always been reading. And there's a saying out there that the child that reads will be more intelligent than others, because it's either natural or either they weren't forcing me to read. But I've always been a reader. And, I try to tell people where we are today. Thank God where we are today with President Trump. See, my dad's 5 years older than President Trump. So those generations, they didn't have social media. They didn't have what we have today. They had books. And thank God, our founders and people who wrote all these books and literature throughout the years, and the ones that kept pressing that forward, is why we have what we have, to be able to say, well, this is what America is supposed to look like. And all you others out there that are preaching and promoting a different way of life, you want your milk and honey, like the Merle Haggard song. They love our milk and honey, but they preach about another way of living, right? And it can't work that way. But the way my family and me and different people in the military believe is that, look, the only reason you have your freedoms is because you're allowed that freedom. You're only as free as your surroundings allow you to be. So you're in a nation that allows you to go out and protest a quote unquote king only because we let you do so, right? The countries that have kings don't have people out in the streets protesting anything, right? So it's that visual. So people always want facts, and you got to have facts, right? You have to, but that term, facts and truth, all those words have been diluted through the years on purpose by the bureaucrats in the deep state, the cabal. All right. So what I've done is I try to say, okay, I know you'll lose people when you get too deep on stuff. So what I try to do is go, okay, look, you want to know what President Trump's working with? You got to know what's in laws and orders, because if he wasn't working with laws and orders, right, then you could make an argument that he is a dictator and all these other things if he didn't have laws and orders. Right. You could make that argument. I wouldn't make that argument, because I would still go, well, we got to have a strong leader that knows what's going on, wipe out the insurgents, wipe out all. There's always going to be people, but to be able to exonerate someone, to be able to go into a courtroom or whatever it is for history's sake, it's best to have written documents, what we call laws, and then orders. Well, some people get tripped up on those terms. The law is what's on paper, and what's that would be like a generic law. Like, okay, all of us, we believe that in the South, right, we have hurricanes. All right, they're always going to be around, or are they? Well, so far it looks like it. So we need a law that says this right here. If you're going to live down here, you probably need to have this, 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 and this. I'm just making up a scenario, right? That law would be a generic, meaning like it can cover all different variables, all different kinds of incidents that could happen. Then you can have an order come in behind it that's a specific order under that law. And so a lot of people get the laws and orders terms tripped up sometimes. But the laws that President Trump's working with right now, they've all been in the law books for years. Right. All right. So whether or not they are really constitutional or not is not the point, because of one reason. Well, there's two reasons. But the first reason would be the judges and the courts never deemed them unconstitutional. So there's that. The second reason is this. What President Trump is doing is using all of the corporate swamp the bureaucrats, he's using all their own language against them. He's using the same exact laws and putting in the orders and then enforcing those orders.
Right.
And then he's saying, challenge me. You can't because you left it on the law books all these years. And
Right.
if you didn't want me to enforce these orders that I'm making, the orders that back these laws, or really the laws that back these orders, then challenge me. They
Right.
can't, because they'll have to acknowledge that it's lawful. See, because they left them in the law books all these years. So it doesn't really matter if you get into like our personal levels, our lower levels. We, the people, are supposed to be the government, but we, the people, the majority of the people, forgot about their responsibilities. You're supposed to know as much as you can about the three branches of government, how they function and operate, legislation, who writes the laws, who passes the laws, who interprets the laws. And we, the people, are supposed to have say so in our state levels, especially of our state laws, right? And then also federal laws. But it starts with the states first, because Alabama or Texas may not need what Idaho needs, right? Because we have different terrains and different things that pop up, tornadoes and hurricanes versus blizzards and snowstorms or whatever it could be, right? And so a lot of people have forgotten their responsibility in their roles. So that's why it had to be a top-down operation this time around in history, not a bottom-up like our founders did. So President Trump put in, so it's kind of hilarious in another way, because if you didn't have laws and orders, you could actually use the terms a military coup. It's not a military coup by the definition of that, because a military coup would just be a hostile takeover by the military without any kind of strategic plan already there. But if you go back and look in the Department of Defense budget that was proposed February 2016, who was president? Obama. Obama was the one who proposed all the money for the combat brigades and all they didn't title it that then. They just titled it combat brigades. They didn't say what specific missions in this budget. So they get this budget passed, and then President Trump and the military come in and they take over everything lawfully. So the budget was passed back here. So no Democrat or liberal will be able to say anything at all except for praising President Trump.
Right.
So President Trump showed straight out the gate this was all planned, straight out the gate, and here's how. And this is stuff people can look up. You can go look at, but you got to know what you're looking at first. Like I tell people, you need to know the language first, index, glossary, terms first, then whatever it is and how it all pairs. So January 28th, 2017, 8 days after President Trump.
I was trying to recap really quick, because it's we don't sit down on a board with a board game without knowing the rules. We don't go play cribbage without knowing the rules. It's really that simple. And I think I don't think people really understand there are rules. There are simply rules. And the thing I think I've appreciated about Commander-in-Chief is that he likes rules, he knows rules, and he plays by rules. And the thing is, it's like, I could be lousy at chess until I learn the rules and the strategies to play chess. And he knows the rules and the strategies on multiple levels, from what I can tell. And so anyways, that's something that's been intriguing to me with what you've compiled, is like, you said, here's the framework, here's the blueprint, here's the rule, and this is how we play.
It's a great analogy. I'll be sharing that with people and giving you all the credit in the world. It's great because chess is one of those, especially chess. Chess is one of those you can sit down and with even a mediocre chess player. If you're just a novice, they're going to own you quick. But you're going to learn quick. Also, it depends on how you want to look at it. But if you want to start out in your life with an 0-47 record and then start winning, that's up to you. I prefer to know the game first and then have a shot to be either get lucky on the first time or the second and be like a 1-2 or a 2-1, versus 0-58 and then, I finally know the rules now. Let me try to get out of this hole.
Right.
So that's a great analogy. So, you go back to President Trump. he comes down, he raises his right hand on January the 20th, 2017. And right when he's saying we're going to take the power out of the military, we're going to take the power, I'm talking about military now. We're going to take the power out of Washington, D.C. and give it back to you, the people. The military walks down behind it. No one's ever seen this before, ever. And, guys like me were sitting there looking at everything. But the first thing that military sees are the insignia, like this headband here. And that insignia was military intelligence and judge advocate general right beside it. Well, who gathers all the evidence and collects everything in the military? Military intelligence, as it says. And then judge advocate general puts it in a courts martial or a tribunal, as we call it. All right. And so 8 days after that, he is signing a national security presidential memorandum and puts an order of succession in there. All right. A national security presidential memorandum is for continuity government. That's exactly what that's for, especially national security. All right. Well, a lot of people wouldn't have known that then if they didn't know how laws and orders, but also all these other things that surround those laws and orders, like rules and procedures and things of that nature. So on January the 17th, 3 days before that famous inauguration, the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA put out a brand new Federal Continuity Directive 1, which is that one is the overall shell of a continuity government. Basically, it's like that's like the surface level. All right. And then on June 13th, 2017, just 6 months after that, 5.5, 6, whatever math you want to do. Right. All right. Federal Continuity Directive 2 is published by FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. And then what are the odds that this national security presidential memorandum was put out 8 days after the inauguration? All right. Well, then you got to go look at joint planning. So you have a Joint Operation 3.0. This is your military side. Joint Operation 3.0 publication was put out the same exact day that Federal Continuity Directive 1 was put out on January 17, 2017. A joint operation publication by the military for a continuity government. All right. And then the June 13th Federal Continuity Directive 2, 3 days later, it's called a joint planning, which is the plan book of the operation book. It's called Joint Planning 5.0. Right. So that means we have an operational book here, but we also have an implementation book here, meaning this is going to happen. All right. Then you fast forward. Like right now, I saw President Trump. He literally just posted 5 minutes ago, Jasmine Crockett. Now, that's drama, and I'm going to show people how in another kind of way. He's posting her, and Bernie Sanders has been saying that we are the ones who declare the war. Well, guess what? Most people don't know. The war was declared December the 20th, 2019, in the War Powers Act of 1973, which is Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. That is your Congress right there. Title 50 legislation does that, not the president. And it was a Democratic House of Representatives, a Democratic-controlled House of Representatives who introduced the war order under President Trump. All right. It's there. Every executive order that President Trump has issued to do with California, New York, Texas, Iran, Israel, Yemen, everything is under that Section 1550. It's all lawful. All right. But he invoked a continuity of government with Executive Order 13961 under that Title 50, Chapter 33 clause on December the 7th, 2020. And to prove that is Eisenhower. And I only say that one time because I always give him respect after that because it's shorter to say it. But President Eisenhower and former 5-star general. All right. At that time, he was a 5-star. He was a rare 5-star. A lot of people don't know that. We've only had 8 5-stars, generals, and admirals since the Civil War. Only 8. All right. They're rare. All right. So President Eisenhower established these things called Presidential Emergency Action Documents. They are a part of a continuity government, but you can't have one without the other. So if you have visual of a cog or evidence of a cog, continuity government, then you have presidential emergency action documents as prescribed by law. There's 4 ways that military pairs are federal. It's executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and treaties. All right. Now, what everybody here listening has experienced in your lifetime, because most probably over 40 years old. All right. If you're under 40, kudos for being here, because we need every young person listening. But most people here are probably over 40. All right. You've witnessed bureaucracy and quote unquote diplomacy the wrong way, period. They brainwash people to thinking that this is how it operates. It's not how it operates. In 1973, Congress amended the War Powers Act of 41 and 42, and they made it where a president can only declare a national emergency to use the military. All right. They were trying to put limitations on the president, not what our founders established. Our founders established a balance of power, equal. All right. They tried to put limitations on the president. So President Trump said, all right, I'll play by your rules. And he federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. All right. In March 2020. Well, when he put this continuity government in place, that showed right there that we're going to be using a military occupation. Presidential emergency action documents expand the power of the president for unusual and extraordinary reasons. All right. And then you got to apply those 4 reasons: executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and treaties. All right. So President Trump had 11 executive orders with 11 national emergencies. All right. Over his period of 2017 to 2021. All right, they showed when I say quotation around Biden, people, this is where people lose me sometimes, but the people that don't know this, Biden was not real, ladies and gentlemen. He was an actor. President Trump took all of the deep state tactics. The CIA have been doing this for years. All right, they put in what they call a puppet. It's a puppet government. All right, and President Trump's validated this many, many, many times, but you got to know the language, and you got to realize what you were listening to and what you were witnessing. All right, a puppet government. All right, government in exile. They're all special operations. So you can't just believe in regular military. You got to believe in special operations, because that's what they used. Clandestine operations, covert operations, guerrilla warfare. Guess who was a big connoisseur of guerrilla warfare? John F. Kennedy. All right. And the Special Operations Command 2023 Renaissance publication just put out in 2023 puts a full write-up in there honoring JFK and his connoisseurship of guerrilla warfare. All right. So before we lose too many people here, I know I'm getting deep here, but the Executive Order 13961 was the invocation of a continuity government. When you have an invocation, then you know there's PEDs in place, because that's how they were established. That expanded the power of the president. So that's why President Trump wears this ball cap. Some people still hadn't noticed it to this day. 45-47. That means through 47. 45 to 47. He didn't go away. That dash proves so, and he wears this religiously. All right. So it's all this right here, special operations.
Right.
Now, if you'll watch him at every meeting and every event he's at, you got to flip it around, because the only way to really do it, and this is how we do it, I'll show everybody, is this right here. You'll see his hands. He'll be holding his hands like that.
Right.
It's not Space Force, and that's also not Illuminati. It's United States tip of the spear, Special Operations Command. Exactly what he's doing. He was doing that when he was in the photo with Diddy. So all these liberals out there calling him a pedophile, he's already showing you, I'm in Special Operations. This is all pre-planned. This has been a plan for years. Every single meeting and event that President Trump is, he's doing this. He couldn't do it on Inauguration Day. So if you'll go back, watch this past inauguration, Eric Trump's over there awkwardly with his hands up high where everybody could see it. And he's sitting there doing this. All right. That is a proclamation and a timestamp for history's sake. When you go back, for people that there's only going to be a few, it won't be a many, but the few who say, oh, this is all hogwash. Here it is right here. Timestamp. Right. All these photos outside of your laws and orders. All right. So the invocation of a continuity government was on December the 7th, 2020. December the 10th, 2020, there was an order of succession put in the Department of Defense. Every president has had an order of succession with the Department of Defense except for one, Biden. The most recent and last, I'll do this but two ways, the most recent and last, and the most last and the most recent order of succession with the Department of Defense on June 24, 2025, as we sit, was December the 10th, 2020. Why? How come Biden didn't have one if he was president? How come Biden didn't have anything? Also, those 11 executive orders with 11 national emergencies, it showed Biden discontinue, so they let 3 of them expire, but they were already completed. Biden continued 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies that made no sense why he would do so if he was real. They're the executive orders that's deporting the migrants. They're all yelling he's a threat to democracy, and they're all yelling he's a dictator, and they're all yelling that he's violated the Constitution. But Biden continued 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies. An executive order requires 0 legislation.
Right.
All right. National emergencies have an automatic 2-year termination on them, meaning if they're not continued, they automatically expire. So Biden would have had to continue those. He wasn't real, but for the people who just can't see that right now, why did they continue the very executive orders that's deporting migrants, taking the Panama Canal back, combating opioids, all the trafficking, everything that's in play right now that they're yelling that he's a threat over, quote unquote, Biden continued all those executive orders, and they had an automatic termination on them, meaning they would expire if they didn't even look at them. To continue an executive order with a national emergency, it requires a pen, paper, and president. So that right off the gate should get people's little hamster wheels rolling if they've never heard this before, because that would be, I hate to use it, I know people don't like the word stupid, but that would be stupid for someone to go, this guy's a threat, he's going to take all our stuff, and this, that, and other, but I'm going to continue his executive orders and pass them right back to him when he's president.
Right.
All right. That makes no sense. So the continuity government, the way you prove the continuity government visually, for the people that thought Biden was real outside of the dash right here, is Army regulations. All right. And I had a few Navy people wanted to challenge me way back when. I'm like, you don't even fire the cannons. Why are you even in this conversation?
Right.
Right. And so on January the 20th, 2021, see, here was this executive order with the invocation of the continuity government. Here's your Department of Defense order of succession. On January the 1st, 2021, FEMA put out another publication under their continuity directives 1 and 2. So they have those 2 as your top, like your shells. Then they have all these publications under them that feed back to those.
Right.
They put out a publication on January the 1st, 2021. It said, reconstitution of the executive branch. Well, if anybody knows what the definition of reconstitution means, it means to put something back into its original state. So they're telling you the executive branch hadn't been in its original state, and we're about to do that. So while I catch people up, 2017 to 2021 was the resetting of the legislative branch. President Trump overhauled all kinds of laws, revoked all kinds of laws, terminated certain national emergencies, and then also put in new that's going to clean out the legislation. 2021 to 2025 was the resetting of the executive branch, which is what all these things were about. And that's why you saw all these things with quote unquote Biden. And they used the fall guy. So all these people watch TV shows and movies that have fall guys, and they trap people and they set people up, but they funnel them into a trap and they make them hang themselves versus snitching on them. President Trump's laws and orders funneled the deep state to where they have no that operate room. And that's what chess does. And I'm going to show people how with chess, it's perfect that you use that. I've been using this chess example for a long time. So they have that. Then they created a distraction on January the 6th. January the 6th, most Americans have no idea that January 6th is the day that we count and certify the Electoral College. They thought, a lot of Americans thought January the 6th, 2021 was the first time ever that day happened. I mean, that alone shows the education level of Americans.
Right.
Right. January 6th is the day, every January the 6th, that was set to count the electoral college votes to certify the president. And a lot of people don't even realize that our founders were so brilliant way before technology to put in all these steps. You didn't just go down and vote and, okay, Dale versus Derek, president, y'all vote. Okay, Dale won. That's it. No, they put in all these different steps to make sure that Dale won lawfully, but also without any kind of discrepancies on the back.
Right. Yeah. Electoral college is really critical in the whole process. People don't really don't appreciate the strength of it.
Well, January the 6th, they confused everybody, and it was perfect. But also it was a retaliation. They knew they were going to retaliate.
Right.
All right. But a lot of people don't know there were special operations going on that day, and they were in there retrieving some more computers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. That did happen. That's factual. But January the 6th, the first time in United States history, people witnessed 2 objections take place in the state of Arizona County. Well, Title III, Section 15 of our amended new portions of the Constitution say exactly, in our codification, say exactly what to do if there's 2 objections that take place. All right. Well, all people have to do is go read that. And it says what? No votes are to be counted until the objections are disposed of.
Of course.
All right.
Right. Of course.
That didn't take place. First time in U.S. history, 2 objections take place. But conveniently, after those 2 objections, conveniently and immediately, the quote-unquote insurrection took place. Confusion, chaos, all this stuff. But it don't matter if it would have been real. Here's what people need to understand. It don't matter if it would have been real. That didn't create enough confusion, all these things, that they couldn't still stop the vote and go, okay, what happened in Arizona? They were supposed to stop and see what happened in Arizona if that would all been real, right? It don't matter if it took 2 months, 8 months, a year. It doesn't matter, right? We saw it happen with Al Gore and George Bush way back. People forget that. It took, I think, a month to figure that out, all right? They'd already declared Al Gore the president. Print. Some people still have the newspaper print to this day where they printed Al Gore wins, right? That thing would be worth no telling what in history down the road.
Right.
But when you have the January 6th and the objections, and then you have this quote-unquote insurrection, people didn't realize that was a seditious act to overthrow the government. Those were all Title 18, 2381, 2384, 2385. All the Title 18 is federal crimes and criminal procedures. That's the codification for Title 18. That's what everybody witnessed that day. You witnessed that. Nancy Pelosi, I'm so sick of hearing this even to this day. Nancy Pelosi had no say-so with the National Guard whatsoever. Whether she wanted them or not, she had no say-so. President Trump was already doing what they were doing. See, that the military occupation was already setting up. The troops were doing what they were supposed to do where they were doing it. All right. That day had nothing to do with history, because the invocation of the continuity government was invoked just a few weeks before that. That had nothing to do. January 6th has nothing to do with anything. So when people say the 2020 election was stolen and all that, it was already planned that way. It was already planned because this is a pre-plan. You got to go back to know the National Security Presidential Memorandum, January 28, 2017. All right.
Okay,
and also
I got to ask you a question. Did he get a 70%? I think he got 70 to 80% in 2020.
I believe it's more than that because of one reason. When you look at
and I feel like 70 was right.
Well, no,
yeah,
that would
like
be
70%.
That'd be a good conservative. That'd be a good conservative guess, but I'm believing it was something like like Reagan and Mondale, where I believe it was a true atrocious landslide, and they're going to show those numbers somewhere in history, and here's why. Yeah. And I'm coming up to that. I was coming up to that, but while we're here, if you go on Google right now, if everybody went to Google right now and typed in 2008 presidential election, or you type it this way, were the National Guard activated for 2008 election? No. 2012? No. Well, there would have been no other reason to have it before then anyway. All right. Well, we could have made a case for it, but that's not what we're doing here.
Right.
But 2018, 2020, 2022, and this one, 2024. You can look up on the National Guard official pages. The National Guard have been activated for all the elections from 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. We also have codification in there that if a National Guard or a service member was out at a poll and wasn't on official duty, that they could be charged as well. All right. So they have to be there for official duty.
Wow.
All right. So there's always a rule for everything. Can't.
Well,
right?
you know, we forget where we came from. We forget where we came from because we were occupied. The United States or the colonies were occupied. And I mean, people don't even think about the Third Amendment because if you fail on number 1 and number 2, number 3 rolls right into your house.
I just had this conversation. This is so funny. I just had this literal conversation night before last where we were talking about the amendments. I said the Third Amendment proves everything because most people can't even name the Third Amendment. Like that's the one you get people. That's where you really test people. You say, all right, the people, I got my First Amendment. Name your third. Name the Third Amendment.
Right.
Name the third. I always get people with that Third Amendment because that right there, in a time of peace and a time of war, no soldiers to be quartered. All right. So it shows like you better have allegiance to this nation and you better know this nation through and through our foundation and what set it up, because you and I having this conversation today, we wouldn't be here without that foundation. Right. That's what set this whole thing up. Liberals out there talking about the Constitution, name one thing from the Constitution, they can't. But see, they don't even realize the Constitution is a framework that shows, okay, Congress is supposed to do this and the president does this. And what we're working with, what you and I are sitting here talking about are what the president has used, the orders under that Constitution. All right. So that really Third Amendment.
Yeah, that Third Amendment, it's intriguing because we don't push on it much, but it seems to me that with the Patriot Act actually breaks that because it breaks our privacy that the Third Amendment gives us. We may not be quartering, but they still have access to our living rooms, our phones, through all of that, through the Patriot Act. Maybe a conversation for another time, but it seems to me it's completely been walked all over.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. It's like you got all these things up here that built up that we could make an argument absolutely unconstitutional. But you got to walk it back down. It's kind of like, when people program something and they talk about even like safety boxes that locksmiths build. Even a locksmith can't even crack his own code sometimes. That's kind of hard to comprehend. The guy who built the thing, can't even so there's certain things. That's what I keep telling people, that look, things festered so much everywhere in every facet that, I mean, what we managed to do, the military alone, in the last 9 years, if you'd have told me before that this is what we're going to get accomplished in every facet of every intricate, whatever you want to call it, festering point, trafficking, all forms of trafficking, opioids, drugs, the border, the wall, the migrants, also the resetting of currencies that's been taking place that most people don't even have a clue about as well. All over the world, President Trump dealing with Yemen, dealing with Ukraine, dealing with Israel and Iran. I mean, those three alone right there, Executive Order 12170, Iran, 1979, that national emergency is older than me. All right. So when people say that we didn't have no business, we have extreme business there, because what did the bureaucrats promise Iran all these years? Or what were they doing with Iran all these years? And the bad Iran deal by Obama, which said the enrichment was to be at 3.67, and it was at 83.7 out of the 90% that was needed. No, that deal was not upheld. And then you have Yemen. He declared that executive order with national emergency in 2012. All right, it's been open all this time. And where were all these people that jumped ship the past week? From March the 15th to May the 6th, there was a declared war on Yemen with the Houthis, with the U.S. We were bombing the heck out of them just this March to May. Executive order 13611 with Obama. Then also, Obama had four executive orders with Ukraine in 1 year, 3 of them in 1 month in 2014 that declare a national emergency. But President Trump got Russia to go in and do that because we couldn't start a war. So he had Israel start it with Iran. He had Russia go into Ukraine. All right. And Israel was already bombing the heck out of Yemen. So we come in there and finish it. We didn't start it. We finished it. And so many people don't know the difference in an operation and a war. It's not a war. It's an operation. And laws show that. So when you go back to that, getting back to January, so you move up to show that January the 20th, 2021 is the one that put me on the map, because when I went viral on the video, this is what got everybody, is the January the 20th, 2021. Everybody thought, quote unquote, Joe was being inaugurated. And I'm sitting there looking at this stuff, and I'm at the time, no one knew me, except for my family and friends. And I'm like, that's not inauguration. It's not. That the military didn't salute him. None of the military saluted the motorcade. We always salute a moving flag and also the commander-in-chief. Someone asked me the other day, why is the flag backwards on Air Force One and also on the Army uniform? I'm like, it's not backwards. It's moving forward. It shows we're always moving forward. That's why it looks backward to the average person. But it means, it signifies we're always moving forward. America's always moving forward. All right. And so they didn't salute the motorcade. And then the intricacy things. These were the ones that really got detailed. They showed an older lady there. No offense if you're older women, but she was gray hair playing like a flute or something. Nah. And she looked old. All right. That ain't happened like that. Also, it was perfect that day. They were all wearing masks. So that way you couldn't see the actors, like your cousin who was an actor. All these central casting actors, you could be like, hey, that's my cousin Timmy. He ain't in the military. What's he doing there? All the uniforms were jacked up. All right, uniforms. We're in unison always. If we're cold, like if it's right now in the South, it is stupid hot. All right, and if you're like chilly for some crazy reason, I don't know how you could be out down here right now, but if you were, but they said, all right, we're going to downgrade. We're going to take our jackets off, and we just go to our shirts that are underneath. But someone else wanted to leave their jacket on. Tough crap. If let's say they get sunburned easy, well, too bad. You're just going to have to face it. Everybody's in unison. If you go back and look that day, there were multicam. It's a form of camo, multicam and ACU patterns and all kinds of jacked up. Some were wearing brown, some were wearing black, what we call gator necks. No way. All of us in the military have the same equipment for a reason. It's called uniform for a reason, because you will be in unity, uniform, right? And so there was that. Also, the President Biden raised his right hand at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment. The 20th Amendment says specifically, the president's term shall end at noon. The successor shall then begin. I guess that's why every other president in United States history swore in at 12:01 to 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Biden was the first who didn't do so. Amazing Grace was sang that day. Full Garth Brooks sang Amazing Grace, which is a funeral song. But also, if you look up Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, there's a little publication out there. It's official military. It shows Amazing Grace as a funeral song as well for the Army. All right. It's not something you want to be singing for a happy day. All right. So there's that. Then there was no review of the troops. You saw President Trump this time around again walk by the troops and review the troops. There was no Biden reviewing of the troops. Also, where it gets real fun. All right. Every cannon salute is to have a commissioned officer present. All right. I wasn't an officer in the Army. I was enlisted. All right. So every cannon salute is to have a commissioned officer present. There was no commissioned officer for the quote unquote with Biden. That is Army Regulation 600-25-2-3 cannon salutes. All you got to do is go look it up. Army Regulations. All right. But there's a reason why there wasn't a commissioned officer present. The first time in U.S. history, they showed two different sets of cannons on January the 20th, 2021. You can go from President Trump 2017 all the way back to Richard Nixon 1969. You can see 4 cannons in the national capital region. 4 cannons, national capital region. All right. 4 cannons, by definition, is a 21 gun salute. People get hung up on the term 21 gun salute because they hear 21 guns. It's not that. That's how many rounds are fired. That's all that signifies is how many rounds are fired, how many shots are fired. All right. 2 different sets of cannons on January the 20th, 2021. They only showed 3 for quote unquote Joe at Arlington National Cemetery. They showed 4 at Joint Base Andrews for President Donald John Trump. All right. 4, right, which would still be a national capital region. All right. Region just means all the national capital regions. But the first time they ever showed 3 sets to the cannons at Arlington on January the 20th was with quote unquote Joe. If you go to Arlington National Cemetery.mil, all right, if you go there, it tells you specifically the 3 volley salute seen or heard at Arlington is not to be confused with the 21 gun salute. The 3 volley salute is a military funeral. Old quote unquote Joe was given a military funeral service for the whole world to see. All right. Now, I like to bring this up for one reason. I don't mind trolls because trolls end up putting their foot in their mouth. So I had this troll last year or 2 years ago that was like, I finally got Derek Johnson. The Army, the cannons at Arlington are always at Arlington. They're always there. Right. I'm like, yes. Thank you. Yes, they are, troll. Yes, they are. Why are they showing 3 cannons at Arlington for quote unquote Joe? Every other president has never shown cannons at Arlington. You just proved the point. And this person was supposedly Army veteran for 20-something years, right? Arlington National Cemetery is set aside from the inauguration day. Yes, every president, mostly that you can look back to George Bush. You can't even see any going to Arlington past Bush, but they went over to Arlington, pushed the wreath back. All right, things like that. The only time they've ever shown 3 cannons at Arlington is with quote unquote Joe. They've never shown the cannons at Arlington ever before for a president on inauguration day.
Right.
All right. And then the first time in U.S. history, they're showing 2 different sets of cannons on January the 20th. The 4 cannons, the 21 gun salute by definition. And they told the whole world, this is the official presidential salute battery, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the old guard with President Trump. That's the Army. They're the oldest unit in the United States Army, 1784. They didn't get that wrong. That was your inauguration service. Quote unquote Joe was a visual to show you that this was all. See, the continuity government, that executive order was just signed a month before that. Right. A month and a few days. And then that would be your signifier, your visual of a military occupation. And they told you that they had on Fox and all the other news outlets, they had a general. He had a mask on, but he said it's been a successful transition and turnover to military. He sat there and told everybody. All right. And then you have your rules and your laws, right? Well, I'm showing the laws that back that. And it was most definitely a funeral service. And, you know, that's how it's going to be time stamped in history. That's what took place. Right. You know, and I know that's far-fetched for some people out there, but that's straight up Army regulations. And they didn't get that wrong. And here's another reason why. If you believe in President Trump, one, the ones who doesn't matter, then you got to use some common sense and go, okay, these people that don't believe in him, they say he's egotistical, he's cocky, and he's all that. Okay, is that the characteristics of an egotistical, cocky dude? Right? But you think that okay, they show all you these things. You don't think for a second that he would have gotten things correct. All right. You don't think that? So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to split that hair for people out there, depending on who you are and what you support. But what we're trying to say is that what everybody witnessed for the last 70 years, all the way back to Korea, it's all been corporate. It's all been cabal, deep state, bureaucrats, and quote unquote diplomacy that they twisted and manipulated the laws and the orders to fit their narrative. What President Trump said today, even, he said, I'm not happy with Israel or Iran, but especially Israel. So he's showing you a true commander, and he dropped the F-bomb today on there. He said they don't know what the F they're doing. Well, that's a true commander. And that's why people need to know the real veterans. That's why we love him. The veterans that know our laws and orders, and also the current service members. It's because, look, it don't matter who's wrong or right. It could be your own child who did wrong, and you got to do what? You did wrong. I'm sorry. You did wrong. And here's consequences to it. You don't do what he's already alluded to this. He said bureaucrats, they'd fire someone over here in finance, but then they'd replace them and put them over here in logistics or something, right? They just reshuffled them. They didn't fire them. They always found a place for them, the incompetent bureaucrats, right? So everybody's watching the draining of the swamp, and that's what's taking place, but it had to be done lawfully. It had to be done via a strategic plan and a lawful plan, and a plan that also went against their grain that showed, okay, if they say anything, they're going to have to do what? Acknowledge him. So they're trapped now. They're all trapped. Like Iran and Israel was the last like operation that we were going to do, and people are about to see that. But it goes to the chess match. And I've been showing people this. All right, in a game of chess, when the queen protects the king, when you knock the queen out and the king's there, he's stalemate. So then it becomes a waiting game. And here's what I tell people. Sometimes it's better if you did something to me, Dale, I'll just have to use you, or like if I did something to you, I'll reverse it. That way it's not me picking on you. If a listener hears this the wrong way, they might think something. Sure. So if I did something to you and you said, you know what, I'm gonna make it to where Derek, I'm not gonna tell on Derek. I'm not going to snitch on Derek. I'm not going to tattle on Derek. I'm going to set up something strategic and lawful by rules and a procedure that's going to make Derek go into this funnel. He's going to be ostracized, and he's going to come to this wall, and he's going to get to this wall, and he's going to turn around, and he's trapped. And I have all the water, food I need, and I can just sit here and cross my arms and say, all right, Derek, the only way out of here is to raise the white flag. I didn't beat you, but I just bested you. I just put you in a corner, and you can't move, and you're not going anywhere. You can't climb the wall. You can't dig under it. You're trapped. I have you, and guess what you have to do? You have to raise the white flag of surrender, and you also have to tell the people what you did. That's what President Trump did to the swamp by laws and orders, and they're trapped now. And it's called the stalemate. Right? He's stalemate. The king is stalemate. So Joe Biden and the Democrats are stalemate. They're trapped. So now all these people out there, they're creating this, they're setting the stage. This was all unconstitutional. It's all unlawful. Where's the war order? Where did he strike? It's all in Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, put there by a Democratic House. So now all the people who were against President Trump, the only way out of it is to start praising him. Jeb Bush is already praising him. President Trump just showed Jeb's post this morning. He said, oh, that was this strategy. So see, all the liberals heroes and all the rhinos heroes are going to start falling, because what they're going to do is have to start doing what? Praising President Trump. All of them. That's the way President Trump will be exonerated. He told everybody from the get-go, I'll be exonerated, not acquitted. I'll be exonerated, meaning nothing on my record. I'll be cleared, because it was all planned. So now they have them trapped. Because Israel and Iran was the last big one, all right? Everybody else capitulated. Every other nation capitulated to President Trump except for Iran. All these other nations have been in operations with us. Every nation that was in Israel after the start of the quote-unquote war, October the 7th, 2023, Siggy Flicker is one of my good friends who was born in a bomb shelter in Israel, all right, and back in the day when it mattered, all right, when Iran was really chattering up, all right, 1967, the 6-Day War. All right. Well, Siggy loves when I do this. In 1 week time, 1 week, all these military were in Israel from October the 7th to 14th, 2023. All these: Tunisia, Algeria, Nigeria, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Thailand, Colombia, Argentina, America, United States, Canada, Poland, Germany, all your Belgium, your Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, all these nations, United Kingdom, all them, and Ukraine and Russia, though they're supposed to be in war with each other, but they have humanitarian aircraft and military in Israel. All those nations at one time Guess what other nations? Guess what nations were in the United States at the same time period? Every one of them. Russia, Ukraine, Tunisia, Algeria, Nigeria, Bulgaria, Romania. Forgot those two. All right. All those nations I just named: Thailand, Japan, New Zealand, Canada, Argentina, Colombia, Panama. All these nations, like, are all in the U.S. and also in Israel at the same time. It shows all the capitulated nations who are all working together. All right. And one who did not, Iran. All right. And Ukraine, which Russia was dealing with. It was the U.S. Department of Defense in 2003 and 4 and 5 that were funding them. So that was Bush. All right. So it's going to tie all that in. And there will be an end to this. Like, there's going to be like this holy grail for people. Like, it will be like displayed, but they have to do everything in pieces because there was so much of it. Right. But there will be like this moment of justice. Everybody's yelling for justice. There's going to be a revelation of that. Obama, Hillary, all these people will be unveiled in the time. But like President Trump, what he's doing strategically, we got to win so much that we're tired of winning. Well, when you're winning so much and people see their paychecks are flourishing, they see these taxes that have been undone, when they see the tariffs bringing in the money and the gas go down, and when everything is like all at once, not the checks and balances the bureaucrats did for years where one was high and one was low. When everything's low and everybody's winning, if you're whining and complaining at that point, then you might need to be deported, right? Because you're not appreciative of what's going on. When everybody's winning so much, then you can do what? Introduce justice, because then people will go, holy crap, these people did this all these years to us, and they did this, and it was a mind game and a control tactic. When people see what was put on them all these years, even the liberals, there's going to be a lot of liberals who come over to the right side, because that's what this is all about. This was never about us fussing, fighting, bickering, and hating each other. And the deep state pinned us against each other, against our core values, which is race, politics, religion.
I have so many questions for you.
Religion, and a few other things. But pay especially, they pinned us against each other. All right. So you're going to see that. And I just got this so funny. It's happened yesterday. So I saw a message come in. I'm like, what is this? So I go to True Social. True Social, not President Trump. And it may have been their coding system. I don't know yet. We're going to find out. But I was deleted and banned off of True Social yesterday, briefly. So I text Siggy. I said, hey, I got deleted off of True Social. And she said, I'm on it. Well, she looped me in with a certain person I won't name. And then also we straight to Devin Nunes. Within 3 minutes, I'm back up and rolling. All right. But the last post I put up when I got deleted is the one that everybody's going to be like licking their chops over. All right. I've proven how the assassination attempts were all special operations. All right. They were not real. They were all planned. All right. It's special operations. So if you believe in military, you got to believe in especially special operations.
Right.
All right. It's in our Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide 2016. You can go look it up. There's a pyramid in there, and it's a pyramid for revolutions. All right. That's exactly what it's titled, a pyramid for revolution. All right. And it's got all these steps on there. All right. And it shows assassination. And it says specifically, it says forming favorable public opinion. Well, did the Republicans, conservatives get mad? The ones that don't know laws and orders and special operations? Yes. Checkmate. It says advocating national cause. Well, did it leave the walls of Pennsylvania? Yes, it did. Checkmate. And then also it says creation of distrust of established institutions. Well, did everybody get mad at the CIA, the Secret Service, the law enforcement, et cetera? Yes, they did. But then a week later, they followed up with the director of the Secret Service under congressional oath. And they asked her a question. But see, most people's attention spans didn't watch that whole 3-hour thing. And right in the middle was this, right? So she was right dead in the middle. So most people have already lost interest at this point. Right in the middle. Then you got to go listen to her. It's like I tell people, they interrupted her on purpose as on top of this. You got to take what she said here and what she said here and put it together. She specifically was asked, did President Trump receive the same security he would have received as a sitting president? So
Okay.
why are they asking about another form of security? Right? They're already alluding to it. There's two different forms of security right there. Okay, listen to the question. The question would be necessary if there was only one form of security. It said, did President Trump receive the same security that he would have received as a sitting president? I mean, there's two different forms of
Right.
security. And she
Right.
answered the question. She validated my books without saying Jared Johnson's correct. And it's because it's not about me, but she validated everything when she said, she said something. She said, well, no, blah, blah, blah. And she got interrupted. And then she said it was a continuity of government. She validated everything right there.
Right.
All right. Now watch this. Everything is on a 50-year cycle.
Right.
Jubilee is Hebrew. All right. In 1966, the first pyramid that was published, all right, Special Operations Command, the pyramid had the word agitation. 50 years later, when it was published, it was written before 2016, but it was published in 2016. All right. Agitation goes to assassination, and that's supposed to be a coincidence? I don't think so. All right. So the word agitation was changed to assassination from 1966 to 2016 in our unconventional warfare pocket guide. All right. Now watch this, though. This gets even better. This is what I think I got blocked for because I'm right over the target. In my books here, I mean, I know everybody's already seen them before, and I'm not trying to advertise, but these are already been in print. These have been in print. This one's been in print since December 2023, but they stem from my documents that were published January 2021. So I already showed people it was a military government, military occupation, all that right there, way back. So watch this. This is what I got banned for because I'm always over the target, and I'm about 2 to 5 years ahead of everything, just because of laws and orders. And you could be too. That's why I try to tell people. You could be too if you put the foundation right. So President
That's why
Trump,
you're here.
well,
That's why you're
President
here.
Trump, this is President Trump 4 months before. I tell people, look, y'all probably smarter than me math-wise. I always give credit to everybody else. I said, look, I escaped Alabama high school being able to count past 18. See, down here, we can only count the number of national championships the University of Alabama has. All right. Then that's 18. All right. So I'm lucky. I can count past 18. So I tell people though, it's Alabama hillbilly math. Let's see. July 13th was the quote unquote assassination. So March, April, May, June, July. 4 months before the quote unquote assassination, President Trump is filing a Supreme Court docket case. All right, with the United States Supreme Court. It's docket case 23-939. You can go look this up. It's all public. All right, 23-939. Now it's got a lot in there. When you get to it, when you click on it, you can't even see it. It's a drop down. Scroll all the way down to where it says March 19th. Find all the dates from March 19th. There's going to be a few of those, but then find the one that says three amici curiae. All right, that's Latin for friends of the court, but you'll see 3 amici curiae. It's very specific, military, and you'll click on it. You open that up. That specifically asks the question. It says, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder on a political rival? Now, I've gone on with former Navy SEAL Michael Jacko, who was SEAL Team 6, who was in the room with Obama and Biden when they were planning all this with Pakistan and all this with Obama, right? And Osama. All right. And I was showing him that. I said, now, our military personnel, they get a hall pass because they were under this order that they thought was maybe a lawful order. All right. Well, if you go back and look, the only time SEAL Team 6 and a president's been involved with each other, Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was killed May the 2nd, I believe, 2011. May 2011. All right. Well, that's Osama and Obama. Obama commanded that. Guess who else was killed in 2011? Gaddafi. In October 2011. Guess who he was the leader of? Libya. Well, what happened in Libya? A little thing called Benghazi. Who does that bring into the picture? Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yep.
That opens a massive can of worms. And that question specifically asks, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder? And guess what those amici curiae and also multiple senior level military said? Astounding no. All right. And nowhere in the War Powers Act is there an order by Obama on any of his strikes, any of their operations. All right. That's going to open up all this. That's why they're setting the stage right now that, this is unconstitutional. No, President Trump's is Section 1550 and everything under it. That was, and the Democratic House introduced it. So it was bipartisan on top of it. So that's going to open a massive can of worms. And President Trump's been posting, all roads lead to Obama. All roads lead to Obama.
So what I'm hearing you say is this work that you've done, the laws and orders, gives us the foundation to actually understand this transition and what's going to be happening, not just now, which I can generally understand it, learning details and different things. I mean, I think about the fact that, I had a grandfather too that opened my eyes about some things, like a Prescott Bush, and and seeing the continuity of the Bush government since maybe the 40s or at least the 50s in the Oval Office, because they had access to the Oval Office until Donald Trump walked into it. And that's something I've not heard anybody talk about. But you talk about continuity of government. They've had a continuity of government. What's that, 50, 60 years at least. And I know he was trying to do a coup on Roosevelt, at least they say, back in the 30s and so on. So
and I'm on a show 2 years ago with the colonels that forwarded my books. They're all special operations colonels, retired. And they make a great talk about what you're talking about. They make and that was so awesome that day because there was a bunch of us lower enlisted and lower ranked there. And it was so awesome. One of the colonels said, can I kick this off? And we're like, yeah. And man, you talking about layering it. He was talking about World War II. He was talking about Roosevelt, Churchill, and even they knew a little bit too. But some were trying to go against orders. Our Marine Corps, when they were dropped on the beaches, and they're coming in airborne, right? They were realizing they were ambushed and they were set up as well because they were already getting shot at in the sky. That's why our Marine Corps went in there and annihilated the Normandy and all these places because they realized then it was almost like a kamikaze, right? They were on the suicide mission kind of deal. So those commanders painted a really deep picture of World War II and how that was even still in the start, really not the complete start, but that was the start of what you're talking about with Prescott. A lot of people don't even know about and I know you know it because that's not his last name either. Sherpa, however you say it, I can't even pronounce it. But George Herbert Walker was not a Bush, ladies and gentlemen, right? He was a German spy, right? His family, and then he also was CIA director for Lyndon Johnson, and so when all this is unveiled in history, you're going to realize that America was hijacked by deep state and their agendas, and this is the war to end that. So anybody out there saying what they're saying about President Trump, they can't even be completely accurate. And the other thing is he's a face. He put his name, brand, face on this. He's not the one that wrote all this in the strategic plan. He understands it. And he's super brilliant and he's super smart and he gets it and he knows how to play the special operations.
Right.
And I say play the correct way, meaning like we're taking out the deep state, the cabal, and all these mafias. But he's smart, but he's not the one that wrote all this. And he told everybody this past January. He told everybody. He said, he talked about General Keith Kellogg, who he acknowledged in North Carolina way back during the storms. He said, I'd like to acknowledge someone who's been with me before all of this. Before all of what, President Trump? What is this? Right? That's the operation he's talking about. Right. All right. General Keith Kellogg is the one who wrote the 2017 National Security Strategy. Oh, and by the way, every other president has had an NSS. All right. They showed, quote unquote, Biden's on 2022. But the Department of Defense, to this day, if you leave right here and go to Google and type in Department of Defense comma, and put in national security strategy, the most recent national security strategy that's on the Department of Defense right now as you speak is 2017. Where's Biden's? If Biden was president, it should be there. We have plenty of time to put up on an archive. It's not an archive page. It's the actual live page. So where is it? It's not there. So there's so many things that can allude to for people out there to see that the military took over. There's no White House military office right now. Matter of fact, I was just showing you if it may be able to be seen on the screen. If it'll pull up here, but I'll show you. I tracked the aircraft. All right, that's Air Force One and President Trump supposedly going to the NATO summit right now. Right. Well, there's no call sign, empty call sign. Now that's Air Force Two right there behind it, following. It's flying no call sign. Ever since this military occupation has been put on, Air Force One with quote unquote Biden and also quote unquote Kamala and then also President Trump and Vance, no call sign. Guess who's flying with all the presidential call signs? The Department of Defense. All right. So that shows you that the military is still in control. And while we're there, the continuity of government executive order that President Trump put in place. You can't revoke something that hasn't been invoked, right? That's not even possible, right? You can't revoke something that hasn't happened already. Like you can't cancel something that hasn't happened, right? So Executive Order 13961 on Biden's record, this is all awesome because they use him as a fall guy. And it also it makes the deep state and the swamp have to acknowledge President Trump by this. So once you get it that it's an occupation and all part of a movie, it'll click. But if you're still over here in the normal world, and this is all new to you, I understand it's all new, but it's a tactic. Until you get that, they use this as a fall guy. The last thing on quote unquote Biden's record on the federalregister.gov on executive orders is a partial revocation of the continuity of government, meaning we're still in the continuity of government. So why would Joe wait to the last full 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke a continuity of government versus if President Trump's a dictator and he's a violate the Constitution, he's a threat to all this other thing, why didn't they revoke it on day one? Why would you let a continuity of government run all the way to the last full day of presidency? You wouldn't. You would also abolish everything that President Trump did. They would have abolished and terminated and revoked everything, even if they thought he would have won in 2024 in a real-time scenario outside of an occupation and an operation. They would have revoked everything where he would have had to spend all this time going back doing what he did in 2017 and 2021. Right? Why did they just leave everything open? Here you go. Here's a big red bow. We didn't terminate this. You can still keep deporting migrants. You can do it. But we're going to call you some names, so just don't worry about that. That's what that's saying, right? So it shows when people see the blueprint and everything that's been put into place lawfully, all right, but also learning tactics of the puppet state, government in exile, all those are unconventional warfare. It's unconventional for a reason. And if you don't know about it, then you're not supposed to know about it until you learn those terms. And you can know those. Everybody walking, living, breathing can know this stuff. But most people don't because it's a tactic, right? It's not a law, a traditional law. It's unconventional, all right? But it's all there, and that's what they've used on the deep state, and there's nothing they can do about it. That's why President Trump kept posting, nothing can stop what's coming, and he keeps retruthing people's, when they put stuff up, nothing can stop what's coming. Well, we're not even there to the finale yet. So, you know, that's what I told people this week, man, all the rhinos and the never Trumpers resurfaced to show that they weren't really President Trump loyal supporters. But this is all pre-planned. It's all there, and laws and orders show so.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, so I got to ask you, because this was one of the most dreadful things I've ever seen in my life, and that was the pullout from Afghanistan. Where does that fit in here? If there's a continuity of government, then how do things like that happen? How does that?
Well, also, I always ask people this: were you there? No, you weren't.
Okay.
All right. And I don't mean that. And I know that sounds facetious a lot of times, and it sounds condescending to if you didn't know me personally, you've met me personally. Now you don't know me that well. That could come off that way. But I try to tell people that first is that this.
Right.
There's that. The other thing is this. In a lot of people who've never been around any kind of aircraft, whatnot, then you'd have to experience that for yourself. But the photos they showed that day, they were all still photos. They weren't even videos. Some of the photo they showed of the Globemaster, and they showed all these people surrounding this aircraft on the tarmac now, runway, tarmac, right? For the people that don't know what a tarmac is. But they showed this big Globemaster, a C-17 Globemaster, right? With all these people surrounding it. It wasn't a real Globemaster. Like it was a blow up, it was an inflatable blow up. And they started showing you this stuff. I say it started showing people this stuff with Russia and Ukraine. They were showing articles. If people saw them, some people don't, but it's there for when they finally do see it, that they use inflatables. That was an inflatable aircraft. It was all part of an optic, but also using a fall guy, meaning that we don't need to pull out of somewhere until we finish the job. All right, that's what created bureaucracy or they're what they call diplomacy. So President Trump was setting the stage as well for what's taking place with Yemen, what's taking place with Iran. All right, we didn't. I say we. President Trump and what's been happening the last 9 years. He didn't sign these executive orders with Iran, with Yemen. He wasn't the creator of Afghanistan. He wasn't the establisher of Iraq, right? And why did they drag that out? Now, again, this is going to be sensitive for people. It is. But they're also going to prove, talking about the Bushes and talking about Obama, Iraq and Afghanistan, they're going to prove that Iraq and Afghanistan, they're going to prove that 9/11 was all a rig job. All right. It was all inside job. All right. They're going to prove that. Sure. Now, the reason why President Trump has to be delicate with this stuff is for one reason. We have the highest rate of suicides we've ever had with veterans. All right. And you have to be delicate with veterans. And I'm a veteran as well, et cetera. But we have to be delicate for one reason. When everybody signed up in the military from the 50s, whoever's living right now, mainly Korea vets, we only have a few World War II left. But Korea, especially though, to Afghanistan was all man-made wars. All right. They're bureaucratic wars. These were not threats to us. They were not threats to us. Right. All right. The threat was Iran, who Jimmy Carter opened an executive order with a national emergency, but they let them stockpile for 40 plus years while chanting death to Israel and death to America all these years. And they're stockpiling nuclear weapons. And it's going to show Obama's deal. They were supposed to be at 3.67 enrichment. And our generals are showing, we're at 83.7%, 83. So there goes back to people believing in entitlements. Well, there's your generals right there telling you, this Obama deal is all bullcrap. This, whatever it was going to be detrimental. So that shows people right there. But 9/11 ties in with that because of what Bush and the Bushes all were doing. All right, you got to go back to the timeline. I give everybody this timeline, and maybe I can go through it quickly. But 1941. December the 7th, Pearl Harbor takes place, right? 1941. 1940, December the 8th, 1941, the next day, Roosevelt tells Congress, they better put something in writing or what? Well, he was already in his third term. I'll have to go back and look at the date of it. But see, he died in his fourth term. A lot of people don't know that. He's the last president. He was voted in 4 times. He was in his 13th year. All right. Nowhere in our Constitution does it say that a president has a term limit, and nowhere does it say that Congress is to put term limits on the president. Right. And our founders, George Washington and all them, they had some comments on it. They said, well, we think you should only need two terms. Right. But they left it up to the people to decide that. All right. Nowhere in our Constitution. So if you're a constitutionalist, but if you're the original Constitution, nowhere in our original Constitution does it put term limits. So I'm going to skip 2 dates on purpose in this timeline and show everybody what you're witnessing. 1941, when that happened, they made the first War Powers Act of 1941. They followed up with the Second War Powers Act of 1942. It wasn't a replacement, though. The Second War Powers Act talked about land and naval usage. All right, the first one was more of your War Powers Act, what the military can do, etc. All right. Then you have 1948, Smith-Mundt Act. All right, 1948, that the press cannot use propaganda in reporting what's taking place.
Right.
1949, NATO was established. 1950, we go into Korea. 1950 is also your new, what they call your basically your National Security Act and all these things. So that started happening. All right. 1955, Vietnam starts happening. All right. It wasn't us initially, but that's when it started. 55. 1961, President Eisenhower had his famous military-industrial complex speech. He didn't like where the military and medical was going because of money. What started happening? We started paying military. Oh, here's these GI Bill benefits. Here you come in here. You ain't got to pay a power bill, light bill, phone bill, this bill, that bill. You get medical, you get dental, you get housing. I mean, military is pretty easy outside of the other stuff. All right. So all these people started going in the military for the wrong reasons. All right. They were taking the oath, didn't even know what the oath said, didn't even know what the Constitution was about. Right. Then you have, so I skipped dates on purpose, but 1963, JFK goes around the Federal Reserve, goes straight to the Treasury in January 1963. You think the cabal like that? You think the deep state, the mafia like that? No, they didn't. What happened 11 months later? I think everybody knows what happened November 1963. All right, whether you believe, whether you believe it was real or not, you have people out there that believe he went to witness protection. Doesn't matter. It's what was displayed to the people that matters for the moment. All right, 63. 68, we leave the gold standard. All right, the Unified Budget Act was passed. All right, we leave the gold standard. We go to this unified budget. Congress takes over your what? Social Security, the highway funds, all these things. They put them all in one fund, right? One pile. So that'd be like you and I and all these people over here watching. Be like all of us putting our bank accounts together. Well, someone's going to be happy and someone's going to be mad, because when someone who's never had money takes out a whopping chunk of change and goes and buys something with it that's stupid, like a purse or something like that, you say, all right, well, how do you plan on putting that back in? Well, what did Congress do all those years? They didn't replenish when they took it, right? They started creating tax for a tax for a tax and a tax for this and a tax for that and a tax for this highway and a tax for that highway and a tax for this, right? 71, the Nixon shop, all right? 71 and 72. Well, the Congress made what? The dollar as valuable as they wanted it or invaluable. We call that inflation and deflation. Right. All right. That's when all that started. Fast forward to 1991, another budget act took place simultaneously the same year that George Herbert Walker Bush, September the 11th, 1991, was making a speech about a new world order 10 years to the day.
Yep.
Prior to his son having a quote unquote catastrophe happen. And the day before that, September the 10th, 2001, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld is standing on a platform, press conference, telling everybody that $2.3 trillion is missing from the Pentagon. And the next day, they don't even wait a month. They didn't wait a year. The next day, the towers, come on, people. All right, so it's showing this timeline. President Trump started really hammering George Bush then. He started hammering. He was talking about the towers. And he alluded to this on January the 20th this year. President Trump said, they asked me around 2015, but really about 20 years ago. Well, if you do 20 years off of 2025, that's 2005. That's perfect timing. And at the same time period, President Trump would have been learning facts and things or speaking out about what was going on with his beautiful state of New York, right? So all these things add up.
Well, what's interesting too is he was there at the site with the 911 or whatever, 911. He was there. He's looking at it. It's like, this is a controlled demolition. You can't tell me that didn't get him thinking. I mean, he walked through it after the bombing, the initial bombing in the basement or in the parking garage years before. and his security took him through the basement or took him through the garage or whatnot, showing him security issues and stuff. And so the World Trade Center was no new thing for him. He understood it deeply, especially as a builder who builds these things.
Exactly. And that's the thing that really, like, that would have been his motivation for sure, to go, you know what, if my life ends, if I lose everything, I love this nation that gave me everything in my life. And that's why I try to tell people, this man, I mean, a billionaire who plays golf every day, can play golf every day, can fly everywhere he wants in the world, anytime he wanted. All right, all these idiots out there talking about bankruptcy, they don't even know that that's a tactic in business. Right. All right, I have my master's degree in business. He wasn't bankrupt in his personal bank accounts, ladies and gentlemen. It's a tactic, and it's like he said, if it shouldn't be a tactic if we can't use it. All right, and every businessman I know and woman says the same thing. It shouldn't be a tactic if we can't use it. All right, and so it's there. That has nothing. So that shows the education. When I hear people say that, I already know that they have 2 brain cells fighting for 4 chambers. They're struggling. All right. And but you know, all this is going to open up, and that's what that one court case alone. Because once you open one thing with Obama, it gets to open everything. Because Obama was a stem and a product off of George W. Bush as well, and all the bureaucracy. But that one incident would be the one thing that absolutely drove President Trump to go, you know what, it's my home state, it's my home turf, and knowing, as you say, as an architect. And like my grandfather back then was like, he worked 48 years at the shipyard. He was like, I don't work like that. That building was designed to take that kind of impact. You know, it wouldn't come down straight down like that, demolition style. And I'll tell you another thing, just for the fun of it, and because most people that know me know I have no racist bone in my body, but I had a black, and I'm talking about ghetto black drill sergeant, all right, at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, that he had us at bay. You couldn't talk to drill sergeants unless they asked you a question. He had us at bay for like 3 or 4 hours on these bleachers before we went into the gas chamber, which is a whole other thing. But he had us at bay, and we were sitting there, and he just, I mean, I don't know what made him just talk about it and whatnot. I guess, I think he may have asked, maybe, I can't remember. Seems like he asked, did most of us join because of 9/11, you know, things like that, because of our age and where it was and what time period. And so he started in on 9/11. And I felt like I was sitting there watching my grandfather talk through a young black man. And he outlined how it was all bureaucracy. It was all rigged, controlled demolition. And what you think you're serving for ain't what you're serving for. This is a black with gold teeth now. All right, black guy. Telling a bunch of white people, mainly, there was a few blacks there, a few Hispanic, but mainly white people. You know, and I sat there and I was sitting there thinking, man, my grandpa was right that whole time. Because here's 2 different walks of life, 2 completely different walks of life, 2 different age brackets, completely different age brackets, and they both sound alike, and they both make sense, and they both gave credible talking points. Right. They didn't have the facts, but they gave credible talking points to go. If you go look at it and you go watch, and then you go do the timeline on the 91, the 2001, but then the September the 10th, the 2.3 trillion, what was that money for? Everything made sense. And that's when it clicked for me to go, you know, but now I joined to serve my country as a whole. But then I was like, man, I got to go do some research again and go do some digging and some reading. Right. And then I don't tell my story, and I haven't told it yet. I will get to one day when it's more not about me, but right now I've been mission oriented with President Trump and the stuff I've been tasked to do and whatnot. But when everybody gets to hear what I witnessed and saw during my time period under Obama in the military, and I'm not the only one, there's others that'll be speaking, but it'll all make sense. Like, because I was forced to retire. I took a full-fledged retirement, and most veterans are like, you can't retire without 20 years. Oh yeah, you can. I have full-fledged retirement, and not just medical. I have full-fledged retirement, and there's a reason for that, and it's a very strategic something that happened. And whenever that happened, it pissed me off so much that because I didn't want out, but I was cornered, I was trapped. And so I started digging on Obama's laws and orders. I started reading executive orders, but more specifically, he did a lot of revisions to the courts martials. So I started reading all that, and I was like, everything started clicking. It started making sense.
Okay.
And then when President Trump, I got out in 2015. So whenever, I mean, it was just right before President Trump rolls down the escalator. I mean, we're only talking about a few months. And then President Trump goes, "Veterans, remember your oath." And I was like, okay, I know something's up, because I was like, okay, this is something that something's about to take place, because the outsider, not a politician, and I started seeing all the visuals when he was on the campaign trail, and he said a quote that was what they call a conspiracy theory for 70 years. He said 200 generals are backing me and more to come. And I was like, oh, my grandpa and my great uncles talked about this military occupation, this military takeover.
Right.
And 200 generals said, never again will they let happen in this country what happened under JFK. And I'm like, there's that quote. There's that. Everything started clicking. And I started documenting stuff. And that's what led to me, the documents, and what led to my books. And it's nothing I wrote. I mean, it's intellectual, sure, but it's not. It's all laws and orders.
Well, you're just putting puzzle pieces together. I mean, they're all shaken together in a box, and you're just assembling it, and you're seeing the picture as you do it, right? I mean, it's really as simple as that.
This is like, but it's. I mean, so before I went viral, and I have to tell this always, but before I went viral, it was June. It's coming up. Matter of fact, 4 days is the anniversary. I was sitting with a Marine Corps veteran in Beulah Battery, Alabama. A lot of people have heard that from the movie Forrest Gump. My seventh great grandfather named and discovered it looks like Beulah Battery, but it's pronounced Beulah Battery. I was sitting at a church, and my cousin wanted me to sit with this Marine Corps veteran at a table, and him ask me questions because I had those documents written. No one knew me. I went viral August 24, 2022. This was June 28th, 2022. And I'm sitting there, and they had him ask me these questions. Well, this is the second time I was sitting with him after he had already read my documents and everything. The first time I sat with him was a couple of weeks before that. And he was like, it's happening. It's happening. He flexes, 84 years old now at the time. This was 3 years ago. Flexed his muscles. He asked me every difficult question that a Marine Corps of 17 years could ask me. All right. Well, he said, I want you to put me on your documents. I said, okay. So he read them. 2 weeks later, June 28th, I'm sitting there. And he goes, son, I want you to do one thing for me. One thing. He said, you have every answer that'll help so many people know what's taking place and what's going to take even more take place, and to provide peace and solace and comfort and all these things. No fear. This is all God. And he said, I want you to do one thing for me. He said, on the very front of your documents, on the very front page, you said it's a monumental historical operation. He said, I want you to add right at the very front, it's a biblical monumental historical operation. And he said, I know God's going to take these documents around the world. So, and I went viral, so that was June 28, 2022. I went viral August 24, 2022. And all around the world, these documents, because they were free. I mean, they still are, the documents.info. Now, a lot of the links don't work because they're older. And like President Trump said, CBS, CNN, they're going to start deleting things, and they did. But the documents are still up. And it was for free for everybody. And everywhere I went in 2022, people would walk up to me with a stack of the documents where they printed them out. Because I made them where you could print them, PDFs. Nice. I didn't do anything monetary, anything. The only thing I've done since then, obviously the books, but I put it more in a chronological, layman's chronological order. But, you have to print books. You have to print. And print's obsolete these days. But still. That's all I've done, and that's it's the chronological order. But you can't. I know there are people out there that don't believe in God, whatever, to each your own. But to me, I'm like, you just can't make this stuff up.
Okay, so he said biblical, and that can be taken several different ways. So, like, this is a God thing. This is like canonical. Like, I mean, Bible being a canonical book, basically the standard outline.
Well, Great Awakening, like
Okay.
a cleansing too. But also, just it removing tyrannical type stuff. The people who say that the most are the ones, it's like anything else. Everybody in here has probably been accused of something in your life. And normally, if you've been accused of something, normally it's the one accusing you that's done what they're accusing you of. Like, especially if it's out of nowhere, you're like, I haven't even been to that state. Or so, like, oh, Derek's got a girlfriend in Maine. I'm like, never been to Maine. Like, or they could say, well, you got, I'm like, so whatever it is, normally people accusing you out of nowhere are the ones doing that, right? So all these people, these bureaucrats, and they pin all of us Americans against our core values, which is race, religion, and even politics to a level, depending on what. I hate the word politics. It should be government. But then patriotism, they've pinned us to fight. We're not supposed to be fighting like this, right? I tell people all the time, I don't want to put people in the spot, but when I was out there in Idaho, the week before I was in Utah, there was a gay couple that walked up. They were wearing my gear. I'm like, and I tell people all the time, if a gay person loves President Trump, even if it's just one, it negates that he's homophobic, because that one person has a mind and a soul and everything. And they'll say, well, why'd you vote for President Trump if you're gay? Well, I believe this. So all it takes is one.
Right.
And what I've been trying to teach people is that I don't walk around telling people how to live your life. I don't do that. I don't condone certain things, but I don't tell you, because I show people, look, there's a way to live and let live. There's a way to live in your house, do what's right by humanity, and do what's right even by your family and your friends, as long as you're not hurting a child or abusing a child or abusing even your family for that matter. But there is a way to live and let live. There's a way to be gay and an atheist in a household, but still support humanity, still support infrastructure. The roads got to be paved. And so what I teach people is that, look, I mean, as a veteran, it's my role to go, hey, look, I don't want you getting hurt for your belief. Like, I'll fight for you for your belief. All right. But there is a set standard that has to be for humanity as a whole, or we're going to always have chaos in this right here. And then you're going to have a group that tells you they don't want you doing this. And you're going to have a group telling another group they don't want them doing that. Well, there's a way to have a whole. Our founders set that up. And then it got lost along the way because so many people started loving the lust of money. Like the Bible says, it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's just the lust of it. Like, I know people are billionaires, but you would never know it by the way they live their life. Some of them, all right? They walk around with cheap sunglasses, a regular old vehicle. They're not riding a Lamborghini around. Now, there's some billionaires who do, and they're still good people. But again, it's the lust of money. It's what you're doing with the money. And these bureaucrats who have always walked around, oh, you can't do that. You can't do it. They're doing the very things they're telling you not. It's that do as I say, not as I do, right? And they're not supposed to be doing that, right? They represent us, and they make a certain salary. So how did they turn $175,000 a year into $35 million, right? I've got the wrong financial advisor. I need their advisor, right? I've never even made $175,000 in a year, first off, but they're taking what we deem to them out of what we put in funds as taxpayers, right? We do have to have something because we have highways now, we have bridges, we have things that we all benefit from that need to be taken care of, right? But we have these bureaucrats who kept doing what? Taking the money and then creating another tax. And we're like, whoa, what's this for? And we didn't have enough people doing what? What is this? We have too many going, oh, okay, all right. No, like they were, our eyeballs are gouged out. They the little squeeze dolls they had back in the 70s or 80s, you know, where it popped the ears out, popped the eyes out, or, you know, like that's what they've been doing. And so then they started pinning everybody against each other with just things that don't even matter. If you're gay, you're gay. No one's going to change that, right? Your rights ain't been taken away. Everybody who's gay is still gay. What's not happening is schoolhouses. Kids don't need to know about that stuff. Kids can barely get through algebra and some of those things already that we never used in the first place.
Yep.
Right. And so things like that. But there's a way to live and let live. And to get all that out of the way and go, okay, here's a set standard. It's always been here, but we got to maintain that. So that comes with what? Accountability, responsibility, transparency, but then communication. All right. So you had to drain the swamp first, and we got to reestablish everything. So that's what I think what my whole point is with people out there is that, there's a way to live and let live, and there is a way to have your way of life and my way of life and us still be happy. And again, I don't follow you home and tell you how to raise your kids and how to raise your dog or treat you. But if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing from the get-go, then everything works itself out. And a lot of people didn't grow up with principles and discipline, and we got to reemphasize that in families. And that's why President Trump, they're taking everything from big government and quelling it back down and bringing it back down. No big government. All right. And we really shouldn't have a big state government, but it needs to be back on state levels, like our founders talked about. Federal when we need it, state and local, and then families. And that's what they've been doing, and that's what they're doing. It's going to take time because you can't change people overnight. It ain't about changing. I tell people we're going through a fundamental reset, not a fundamental change. And that's the biblical aspect of it. It's like, it's just saying, hey, God's the judge. If you believe in God, if you believe in a spiritual realm or whatever that is, you still are believing in something that's going to go be the correct answer on the other side. We're all wrong about something here. My grandpa had the best comment. My grandpa said that son, we're 99.9% wrong with women all the time. How wrong are we going to be with God? Right. And I'm like, dang, that's a pretty powerful statement right there. But, now if you ain't got a woman in your life, if you're a man with a man, whatever, but still, but there is a way to live and let live. And there's a way to be, down here where it's like, okay, it's like football fans. Like, why are people like knocking each other, getting in fist fights over a football game? Right. Like that little thing like that. So if you're a good fan of like Boise State or Utah or whoever, and I'm an Alabama guy, there's a fun, cordial way to have fun with it. But at the end of the day, a football game that you're not going to remember the next year or 10 years down the road, it's not worth knocking someone's head over. Right. That's just where you go home and you're like, I love my team for this reason and their history for this. And I love mine for this. Great. It works out at the end of the day. So all these people out there have been knocking each other's head off each other for even a football game. Just think what they've been doing with politics. And they still go home believing the same way they've ever been. They're still gay or atheist or Buddhist, whatever they are. They're still that. They're not changing that. So, same thing.
Well, I think that's something that's great about America is that America has characteristically always been tolerant. And I've seen that, especially being raised in a house that my dad was raised in Arkansas. And I didn't see any bigotry. I mean, he loved everybody. He had he could get along with all races. It didn't, or I should say, people that came from other places, because essentially that's the beautiful thing about America is like we come together and it's like we're just one nation under God. We are just one.
My dad told me about my grandpa some things I didn't even know, but he'll think of stuff every now and then. We drove by a house one day, just drove by us out in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, we're all in farm country down here. And he said there was a family that lived there. They had 6 children. The father or something couldn't work. Or something happened. And he was like, your grandpa took them groceries every week and he kept them fed off of what he grew. Yep. And then a flip opposite of that, my dad had a best friend in high school my dad's like, they got in a fist fight back then over a girl or something when they were like 9th grade. He said, and I whooped his rear end, and he became my best friend because he wanted me to be his buddy. And that guy ended up being best friends. I'm talking about like that with Ken Stabler, the quarterback, and also Hank Williams Jr. Well, he never worked a day in his life. he robbed a bank here like every so often. There's this little bank. They kept robbing it. And then he'd go to Mississippi, take some of the casinos for their money. But he got busted one time. He got caught, got put in jail over there. And my dad's like, your grandpa went over there and bailed him out. I was like, why? He's like, he loved it. He loved it for some reason. He's like, and I'm like, it's so funny. Same grandpa. Like, but again, there was like, I mean, but the guy would give the money away to poor people too. He didn't I don't know. I know it's like this concept of like taking, but then you're giving. But it's like back then, like there was the people just, the second chances, but there wasn't so much evil, like the vicious, malicious evil, right? Like that was wrong, sure. But now we have so much just vicious and malicious, just
right.
Evil.
Well,
right?
It seems to me what you're describing is a man stealing from the system versus, stealing from you. And I think that's how it's thought. I mean, I just think that's how I saw it. I think about conversation.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And that it's just so funny though. It's like I was like, why? And then that's like, he loved him. It
was clear then. I think it was clear. And I think we've gotten really muddled with because we're fighting against each other and all this stupidity. And it's like I got a buddy from high school that is of liberal descent, and I love hearing his perspective because I realize after hearing him talk about certain issues, we're not that far apart. He has a different bent on it. That's like, wow, I need to be thinking about what he's thinking about. And so, that's the hardest thing is like, we're never going to learn anything from anybody if we're just always right. And like you said, we're like 99% wrong with women. It's like, good luck with God.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I do that. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I know there's a way. I'm adamant on what's going on right now, and it sounds like it is the only way. Well, it is with the operation. But when we get on the flip side, when everything's back into the people's hand, that's where we have to apply these principles. Is that, look, if someone's gay and they're not messing with you and they're living in their house, they go to their house every day, they're not doing anything else like, going to a schoolyard, doing whatever, hey, leave them alone. Like that, they'll come to God, spiritual. If they don't, then they'll meet whatever it is on the other side. They'll meet that. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, if I'm wrong about everything spiritually, the way I treat people, and like you're talking about, the way I treat people and the way I listen to others, I hope that somewhere, if I'm wrong about everything and I do come to a gate, God said, you were wrong about everything. I hope one of them comes up and says, yeah, but he was a good guy. He listened. He fought hard on this aspect over here. He helped all the, and he was wrong about all the spiritual, but he helped me. That's, I love that. And I love that movie, The Bucket List, where he said, if there comes a place where I do cross over and I find that I lose my way, I hope he's right there to help me. He's talking about his best friend and the way he thought about things. And that's the way I think if people would apply some of those principles in their lives like that as well, that some people are a product of their raising and don't know any. They don't know. And I get guilty every now and then of getting in my rattle trap mode or whatever. But it's once people get to know me, they'll realize it's a motivational thing to go read what's in place. Like I've told people, you don't have to like it, but it is exactly what's going on. And then when we get on the flip side of it, it'll have a reasoning. If you'll hang on for the reasoning, it'll have it. And then we can get back to our city halls and our town halls and our councils and our small groups and our conversations. And then we, the people as a whole, can say, well, I don't like this, or I like that, or I like this bundle and I don't like that bundle. And that may be only for Idaho. And then then there may be a bundle here that's for Alabama, and then it all works out, So it had to go through the hell in one way to get to the heaven,
Well, and I think with the deconstruction or devolution, you haven't really talked too much about was it devolution, revolution, devolution? But what's intriguing about that is when you begin to dismantle the socialist constructs of government, which is so much overreach, and that's what's making everybody crazy, is all the overreach. Maybe they can't articulate that, but it's government overreach. They're out of line. They're too far. We've got centralized government where it needs to be decentralized. We need to have local influence. Years ago, I remember just being so clear in my mind about why are we fighting about national politics on a local level? This is ridiculous. Those people don't care about us. And me and my neighbor have more in common than I could ever. I don't care what left or right you actually think is real and believe in. And but as the socialist constructs are dismantled, and we can kind of get back to being America, like how we were actually originally built with all this junk on top of it, it seems like tolerance, local relationships, living together in harmony is way more doable. It's way more possible than with socialist constructs that are pitting people against. Well, I'm going to give you a privilege because I'm going to give this, and I'm going to give this person a privilege, and it all plays into political manipulation and payoffs and all the rest. I mean,
on both sides.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you believe that left and right is real, because I don't, I think it's just theater. But if you believe left and right is real, and you don't understand there's a larger scheme in motion, then yeah, it's actually, I mean, left and right, back and forth. And it's like, I can't give myself to those systems because it's frivolous. And I'm going to be fighting against trying to convince people of things that I'm not willing to give my life to those organizations. But yeah, the left-right construct. I mean, I've walked in my adult life, most of my adult life since 1988, with the thought in mind that there's always lords and there's always serfs, and that has dismantled my left-right construct. Even though I was raised conservative, Republican, Christian. And it's just like, but when you start realizing there's always lords who are above the law and there's always serfs below it. So your laws and orders, this has been really good, Derek. This has been really terrific.
Well, I mean, I love what's going on, and I firmly believe it's going to get to that where it's back to a full, just peaceful solace, because people are going to be so tired of what we're talking about the past years that you just sometimes you get exhausted, right? And sometimes exhausting points where you can really shut up and learn, like where everybody's just in the same, like going,
Right. Well, I liked you had a broadcast
rebuild
on the 22nd, I think it was, and you're just saying, man, I'm just basking in the peace. This is just so peaceful. And it was like, that is just so good. Because I think as these things are dismantled, it'll trouble people. But if people would get a hold of the reality that it's like, listen, we're actually going back to normal. This is, I mean, what we've been living for 50, 70 years is not normal. It's not normal America. It's just not. And so.
Well, there's two things that happened recently that shows that too, is this. One, my MOS in the military was air and missile defense. So everything that the Golden Dome and all this interception, one, you show it works. So that's another thing. It's setting the tone for the future that you're not going to fire a missile. It can be intercepted. We can deflect it. We can do whatever. That was one. And then two, where the piece is this. It's like, not for the people who don't know, but for the people who think they know and they've been adamant against President Trump, the people who write it, I tell them, the people who put ignorance in timestamps, right? Those people, this is what this is for. So the whole Iran thing, right? I knew it was an operation from the get-go and not a war. But then also the nation who chanted death to Israel and death to America for 40 plus years, all right, they're going to legally go after us. That's their retaliation, right? They used a few missiles. I believe that was just to show some little extra theater. But the other thing is it's saying that they're going to challenge us legally. Like, that's where I tell people right there, if you're not laughing at a nation who's, I'm going to destroy you, right? And then we take out their facilities, and then their retaliations, we're going to come after you legally? Like that's the stuff that I'm like, oh, I'm scared.
Right.
Like, you know,
Right.
so that right there is telling people, for the people that don't know, that all that's doing is setting the stage for the lawful exoneration of President Trump. That's it, all this is setting that stage
Right.
for that. Right. But for the people that don't know that, it's like I'm just like, you know, I can just picture like someone, I'm about to kick your legally.
Right.
Oh, I'm scared. Like, you know, like it's
They
just
give you a
that's why I'm
reprimand.
like, yeah, like, oh man, you know, like I'm gonna give you a lecture now. Like, oh, you're not gonna whoop my rear. Oh, okay. It's just gonna lecture me. Okay.
Cool.
Right.
You just change the channel on that
You
one.
know.
So
Yeah, you're not gonna punch me or kick me or, you know, like try to shoot me or stab me. Okay, a lecture. All right, let's go. You know,
Right.
that's why I was like that the other day. I was like, oh, hey, you know, like
yeah, when they
Yeah,
when they
it's like-
start saying that, then it's like, okay, this is done.
oh yeah, exactly. I'm like and that's the other thing though. For 12 days, they played all these never Trumpers and rhinos. See, everybody, the ones that fell for it, they just showed their colors and didn't have to. So see, it's
Right.
also that's like a bonus to an operation. It's not even that's not part of it, but it adds to it that you guys didn't even have to say what you said, and you got played for a fool because it's all lawful. Here's the laws way back here, put into place, and thank you for showing your colors. You know,
Even though you've laid it all out, they don't get it. It's just,
well, it takes initiative to read and study. So it's like I tell people, I've told people before, I can build the track, give you jerseys. I can even show you how to drive. Me and the drivers, I can't make you do it though, right? You know,
right.
so you know,
Well,
but it's all there. Everybody
maybe-
wants to know it's all there.
Yeah, and everybody's listening to this has the ability to learn it, know it, understand it, and actually walk into this next era. I believe next
Empower
era with
yourself.
confidence.
Yeah.
We can totally empower ourselves.
Yourself. Totally empower yourself. You
Well,
know?
Derek, this has been a pleasure. And
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
I've been looking forward to this for a while since we met, and I'm looking forward to. Hopefully you'll come back as a guest, and I'm just kind of revamping this and restarting again. So I'd love.
and I plan on coming back to Idaho too, because I had already scheduled. I'd already scheduled my new album to be recorded, and I didn't know that our good friend out there was going to offer me to stay as long as I wanted. Because I'm going to tell you what, like that's a great offer in a beautiful place.
Yes.
Especially to get to go up to. Next time I'm going up to McCall and some of the other places that I didn't get to explore. But yeah, I plan on coming back. So yeah, it will probably be closer to September when it's cooler. I don't know. I'll have to decide, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's it gets hot, but it's that dry. I'll tell you, I don't think it's as humid as the South, and so.
Well, I may come back before then. So yeah, I might come back before then, but yeah, I definitely want to explore a little bit more. I did manage to drive by, and they let me go out on the blue field, even though they weren't supposed to let me.
Nice.
But
nice.
I did kind of say, I have quite a few followers, and also this, and they were like, okay, they let me out. So I had to pull a little strings because I wanted to see the blue field before I left. I didn't want to be in Idaho and then, like go there and then come back. And then people say, did you see the blue turf? No, I'll see it next time. Well, it's the first time up there in Boise, like out walking around. I'm like, yeah, I had to say I said it and did it the first time.
Right. Yeah. And you're on it. Actually, did you get out on it, you said?
Well, I was right there at the, what was that? The Hall of Fame. They got this special little podium that walks right out. I guess they left their people. Man, if that's the perks of that job, that'd be a cool job. Because, I mean, you just walk right out of the Hall of Fame, and it's right there in the corner end zone. So that'd be cool.
Right. Right. Well, Idaho, it's good to have you here. I'll look forward to that.
It was good to be there, and I'll be back.
I'll have to wait till next June to have another breeder beer with you. But,
Well, would it be, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's right.
Yep, every June.
But that's all right. I plan on coming back and forth. I love it up there. I've already said Nevada was really like one of my top favorites like Northern Nevada up there, but now I'm like, I done told someone, I think Boise, Eagle, all the regions like slid into my favorite spot now.
Nice. Well,
yeah,
we'll take that. We'll take that. It's good to hear. It's a great place to be. I've only been here for a couple of years and down from the Northwest. I'm a Seattle refugee myself. So Boise saved my soul. So it's a good place to be. It's get a lot of good folks. And we're going to be, I'm going to be going over this with some of my kind of inside group and really trying to educate and strengthen, people's understanding of laws and orders as best as I can. Folks, will be actually some links down below when we get this posted finally and for good. And, be looking for those things, some other videos to watch to give more fundamental really Derek's presentations in different formats. But then also the documents is posted, and which is an amazing place to just dig. So, but Derek, thank you so much for coming out, and I will look forward to seeing you again very soon. Any parting words?
Sounds good. Well, for those that don't know what's going on, you're going to have fun digging. It is a unique operation, a unique parameter, so you just got to study that. But those of you that have been studying, just enjoy the journey. It's not a destination, it's a journey. Enjoy it. We're not going to have to do this again for a long time, hopefully, especially in our lifetimes, but just enjoy every day. That's what I tell people. Don't try to look ahead.
Right.
Everything's coming as it's going to come, and it's all part of a strategic operation. But hats off to President Trump for putting his face and image and everything on this and being a part of it, because he deserves all the credit in the world.
Well, Derek, we like to go out with a prayer. So can I pray for you real quick?
Absolutely.
Well, God, I just bless Derek and his work and just the ongoing, really ongoing opposition that he has to deal with. And but I I agree with your protection and that renewing joy, the joy that is strength for sure. And it was so encouraging yesterday, or when I was seeing him talk about, man, I'm enjoying the peace and the joy. And so I just say more and more of that for him. And we just thank you for Derek. Thank you for his contribution to all of us, not just like-minded, but for all of us, really for the whole world, because the whole world needs the message of laws and orders and understanding America as it's meant to be. So bless him, bless his family and his staff. Appreciate his Kathy and different people that are supporting him and just be clear paths to him. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, man.
Amen.
All right, pal. All right, well, we will be in touch, and thank you everybody for coming out.
Thank you. We'll see y'all.